me? Hello, can you hear me? I can't hear anyone.
Hi, Krish, I'm here, but I'd unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Professor
And I can see
Krishna,
you.
I guess by mistake you have started the broadcast, so all the attendees can listen you.
Oh, but they said for me to, I didn't know. Okay, sorry.
It's not a problem. So we have about uh, 2 people right now, so we can just wait for 10 minutes. Probably you can
Yeah.
just turn off your mic and
So,
background just a moment.
yeah, I'll switch off my camera and my mic just for 5 minutes and then get ready. Is that okay? Yes.
Onkar, will you let us know
Yeah.
when we go?
Yes, please continue. I mean, start with the introduction and take the session ahead.
Okay, but we wait a few minutes, right? It's not 4 yet.
Oh, yeah, we
No,
might, I mean,
it started. You can start.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to this afternoon's webinar on interdisciplinarity at JSLH. I am Jayani Banerjee. I teach in the School of Liberal Arts and Humanities at OB Jindal Global University, and I'm also the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs. On today's panel, we also have Professor R. Krishnaswamy, who's Associate Professor in Philosophy, and Professor Sucharita Sen, who's Assistant Professor in Political Science, both teaching in JSLH. They are also the co-directors of the Center for Studies in Social and Political Research. So welcome, everyone. And, we talk a lot about interdisciplinarity when we talk about liberal arts education. It's a term that you've probably come across our website, brochure, everywhere. So in this webinar, we are going to try and understand what exactly we mean by interdisciplinarity and how we use it in our courses. So Professor Krishnaswamy and Professor Sen, if we could begin a bit by defining what interdisciplinarity means, what's the definition, what's the scope. So over to you.
thank you, Jenny, for introducing us. And whenever the word interdisciplinarity is bandied about, and I've been, trying to think about interdisciplinarity and also practice it in many ways in my own teaching and research. But what I've come up with is that interdisciplinarity to me means three things. I mean, one is I see interdisciplinarity as a problem-solving tool. In life, we face many problems, from simple to complex, personal to psychological, to emotional to social and political, and so on. So we find ourselves engaging with different people and different situations and trying to get by and solve those problems. And whenever we come across those different problems, we access a lot of these cognitive resources that we have, which is like a toolkit. Those cognitive resources would include how to solve, from very simple things how to set right a dish that has not gone well, to how to talk to a friend who's in a crisis, to how to deal with a situation like COVID, and how do I emotionally deal with it, how do I politically react to it, and so on and so forth. And so, in a lot of ways, as we go through life, we find ourselves reacting in a kind of a holistic way, and we try and use all the things that we have learned, all the experiences, and we bring that to a particular problem and try to solve it in the way we know best. And I look at interdisciplinarity that way, and I think, especially what we do at JSLH, is to replicate those life situations, so to speak, or the approaches that we have to life problems back into the classroom, the sense of giving students different tools to look at one particular problem, because as in life, we are not worried about whether this is a political problem or economic problem. We just try and solve it the best way we can, but unconsciously or subconsciously, we bring about all these resources, and that could be what we learned from our grandmother, that could be what we learned in our seminar on economics, and so on and so forth. So that's one thing, which is I look at interdisciplinarity as a problem-solving tool. The second thing that strikes me about interdisciplinarity is the fact that it is flexible. Now, a lot of youngsters, when they're about to start their journey into adulthood, into a career, and start their intellectual journey, so to speak, will start with many interests, and I think that is a description that I suppose is accurate of, I suppose, all of us. I mean, we have many interests. I'm interested in music, I'm interested in art, I'm also interested in philosophy, I'm also interested in economics and politics, and so on. So I think it is a disservice to the student to force them to choose a particular stream, which means foregoing a lot of the other interests that the student has. Now, this does come back to bite, so to speak, a person in different ways, psychologically and academically, because down the line, as you go and put in a lot of your time and energy in studying one particular topic, you find as you go into it, you're specializing more and more and more, and suddenly you lose out on all the range and breadth of things that you could be exposed to. Right? So, with interdisciplinarity, what is very significant about it is to keep all these options open from day one. And I think to be able to, for a student to be able to keep these options alive, intellectually, to be able to be interested and pursue music, as well as philosophy, as well as economics. And this flexibility of choice is something that is very crucial to the idea of interdisciplinarity as I see. And the third one is the holistic approach that interdisciplinarity gives. It is holistic because it draws upon these different disciplines, and therefore the education that a student gets through an interdisciplinary approach is going to inform not only their life choices but also their academic choices, in the sense that they will be in a better position to be able to make decisions. If you give them an education that draws upon all these different disciplines, all the choices that they make will be determined by all the experiences that they've got from that education, and which, because it is holistic, they will not find themselves, so to speak, stranded stranded in terms of not being able to find the right solution for the right problem. So these are the three things I look at whenever I think about interdisciplinarity. Maybe Sucharita also has a couple of things to say.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with Mr. Krishnaswamy. I think I believe that students have evolved and are exposed to many different things than students were, say, a decade ago. And students are much better informed, they have access to more information today. And also, I mean, I think that academic frameworks try to update themselves with the changing times. And this is it's quite telling because interdisciplinary studies, I think, is the need for, I mean, it caters to the current audience, where students are better informed, they have varied interests, they like flexibility. Interdisciplinary studies allows academic freedom, much more academic freedom than conventional honors programs elsewhere, which have very limited, access to subsidiary subjects. So there are conventional formulations. I mean, if you're doing political science, you can only do economics and history or economics and philosophy, which is what I had undergone as an undergraduate student. I didn't have the freedom to take art or study literature alongside political science. So I think interdisciplinary studies is much needed. Is very important. It caters to the current audience, the present, the current student who's much better informed. And as an academic discipline, it's essentially to combine academic tools or techniques of two or more disciplines in the social sciences and humanities. And so I completely agree that it's essentially to look at a problem through different perspectives or through different lenses in order to come to a solution which is much more holistic, which is more nuanced, more refined solution. Because you see, the problems of the world, the large issues of the world are also very refined and also very layered. Whether it be climate change or violence, sexuality, problems with gender, or even the current pandemic. And so interdisciplinary studies, which we offer as part of our program, is important because in most graduate programs across the world, and this is something we might discuss later on, in a lot of MA programs and prestigious universities, interdisciplinary studies is essential. And so at our program, we train students from the undergraduate level, which not only makes interdisciplinary studies the very backbone of our program, but allows students to be trained in order to get into these prestigious graduate research programs in MA studies as well.
Great, thank you. I think that's a great introduction. And I see that theoretically it makes a lot of sense and makes interdisciplinarity sound very interesting. But the real challenge, I presume, is how to teach it. So can you talk a bit more about how you have integrated this idea of interdisciplinarity in the foundation courses that you teach in philosophy and in political science?
Now, I teach introduction to philosophy course because I'm trained as a philosopher. Now, one of the things that I do is to be very flexible with the understanding of the concept of philosophy itself. Now, philosophy, at least according to me, is not something that you find only in a text, or as some people said, it should be from people who have died and have written, big tomes of very difficult prose about very difficult issues. That's not how I look at philosophy as such. I want to think of philosophy as something or philosophical problems, something that you can get from your daily life as well. So I try to incorporate that into my course, and towards that I deal with different kinds of media as well. So to give you an example, I make students watch movies, and then I try and ask the students to think about what are the different philosophical ideas that a particular movie might present. So obviously we would have done some reading, some discussion before it, and then we watch a movie, and then we have discussions about the movie where the students say, this particular movie seems to exemplify this particular philosophical problem or this particular solution, and then they try and compare it to either some canonical philosopher and say, okay, maybe we can apply this to this movie, and this seems to go well. And if it does go well, what are the consequences for our daily lives, or what are the consequences for the situation that we live in today's world. And I think that is one of the methodologies that I use. So in this way, I look at film, I look at text, but at the same time, I also bring in current issues which might be relevant to the particular problem. So if there are if I'm teaching ethics, I look at euthanasia, I look at medical ethics, and I bring in a lot of different cases that were popular or current, and make that into a discussion topic. But at the same time, inform the students with philosophical concepts which will help them analyze the events from a philosophical perspective. So I use law when I look at philosophy. I use obviously films. I also use current news items that I can see as input for philosophical discussion. So these are the different ways I bring in different kinds of disciplines into the classroom and try and enrich the discussion.
Great. So basically what you are saying is bringing together a range of perspective, but also mixing the pedagogical approach to help students understand how these can come together.
Yeah.
Sucharita, would you like to talk about your course in political science?
Yeah, I think we have a host of foundation courses that students study in the first year, and political science being one of them. And I think that you see, the foundation course in the first year means that this is a stage where students haven't selected their major yet. And so we teach small classrooms of about 25 students in each section. And these are students who have varied interests. They may have made up their minds to study psychology as a major, literature as a major. So they have these, they're going through a phase where they're trying to decide on what they might want to major in. So when we design a foundation course, we have to keep in mind that this is a very diverse audience. And people will have different interests, and they may not be solely interested or committed to political science. And so I keep that in mind always when I lecture in class. And so I think that at the heart of all social science disciplines, it is the study of the individual and the individual's relationship with the world. And this is, I mean, all social science disciplines, humanities disciplines deal essentially with this. And so I think that as part of, with the interdisciplinary ethos in mind, one must acknowledge that disciplines have a unique or distinctive way of understanding the individual, a distinctive treatment of the individual. And at the same time, you must sort of try and see where the overlaps are, how to make connections, how to connect the dots, really. So, for instance, in political science, we've studied, say, the Holocaust. We discuss issues of violence. This is something that any other discipline could also discuss. In sociology, they discuss it in social sciences, they discuss it in history, in literature, and so on. So when I teach these subjects, these topics in class, I find that students bring various points they've heard in other lectures and other seminars, and they want to make these connections, and they try to test what I have to offer as a political science person. So I think that I try to keep a balance between offering what is unique in political science, unique to political science, as far as skill sets are concerned, because that's also very important to for students to be involved in, and at the same time to be able to look at the larger picture, because ultimately they have to write a thesis, their undergraduate thesis in their final year before they graduate. And that thesis should really be a reflection of all the different kinds of disciplines that they have been trained in the past 3 years. So that's where my focus lies in as far as foundation courses.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering, Jan, you yourself have taught foundation courses. I would love to hear what your experience has been of teaching foundation courses, and if there's anything unique you do to those courses.
Yes, I think all of us who teach foundation courses, and all of us in JSLH actually teach foundation courses, we have something called thinking across the curriculum. And I think while going over our curriculum course outlines, we also look at points of connection, so that just like Sucharita, you mentioned, a topic like Holocaust may bring feedback from other courses and bring in a different disciplinary perspective to the discussion, to the classroom discussion as well. I, of course, teach a course called Society Space Culture, which is a combination of anthropology, geography, and sociology. It's also an interdisciplinary course that brings in a range of themes. But more importantly, in JSLH, we feel that teaching students to think interdisciplinarity is also, or to think in interdisciplinary terms is important. And as you know, we have a set of 3 ID courses, or interdisciplinary seminar courses, as we call them. The first one is in the first semester, and it's called I, Me, and Myself. Students, often find the mode of learning quite different at university compared to the one they have gone through in school. And at the school level, there is an emphasis on focusing on particular disciplines. And there is a reason, a very good reason for that. But coming into a liberal arts program, a student needs to break out of that mold. So ID1, I, Me, and Myself, has been designed specifically to help students break out of that mold and engage with a variety of readings from different disciplines, but also to engage in a bit of fieldwork and analyze oneself in relation to one's social surroundings. In ID2, it's called Idea of Ideas, and we focus on critical thinking and debating skills. And this is a very interesting course that focuses on contemporary critical issues and looking at big ideas such as, the idea of the Anthropocene, the idea that human beings have influenced the physical environment to such an extent that it has changed. The idea of money, the idea of God. When you look at these ideas, they are, of course, rooted in a particular discipline, but they actually borrow from several disciplines. So the aim in ID2 is to introduce students again to a range of disciplinary perspective. And the assignments that we have as part of ID2 focus on helping students develop those skills, bringing together the perspectives. ID3 is a course that I teach, is a service learning course. It's a field work based course where we work with local government primary and pre-primary schools. While it's an introduction to research methods, but just like Krishna Swami, you pointed out at the beginning that when we think about problems in the world, or when we enter a work field, we have to engage with problems from a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary perspective. So ID3 really introduces students to that notion of studying an issue in the field, but bringing in different perspective. It's based on the idea of service learning, so students usually help out in the school, but in the process, they also learn about a rural setting and issues around education, health, and many interesting interdisciplinary projects have come up, such as I remember one particular year where students came up with using GIS mapping, a set of children's maps of how they come from home to school. So charting the paths, of course, it's about geography, but it's also about the sociology of it and thinking, which road is safe, which is not, why would they take that particular road, and certain points of references. So these are the three sets of interdisciplinary courses which we hope train students in interdisciplinary thinking. And moving on, in the third semester, students choose their major. And while it might seem that at the foundation level, students are made to study all these different disciplines, and interdisciplinarity is really practiced. Could you say a bit more about what happens at the major level? Do we throw interdisciplinarity out of the window and students focus on political science, philosophy, or psychology? Or is interdisciplinarity continued but in a different way?
I mean, before I answer the question, I just want to add one more fascinating thing about interdisciplinarity is that the practice or the idea of interdisciplinarity is so irreverent towards any kind of boundaries that in a way engaging in interdisciplinarity is very liberating, especially for students who are 18, 19, and so on. The reason I say it doesn't respect boundaries, especially how we practice it, I find that there is no strict fast boundary between the classroom and outside the classroom. There is no strict fast boundary between theory and practice, and similarly across different disciplines. So in a way, when students come into our program, what they find is that initially I'm sure it's going to be a bit disorienting coming from conventional educational system to where they don't find any boundaries and they're trying to look for boundaries. And why is the political science teacher talking a bit about literature? Isn't this something that only a literature professor is supposed to talk about? Now, this might be disorienting, but once the students get used to the idea of interdisciplinarity, it is very liberating because that way it suddenly opens up their minds to thinking of any particular problem or issue in multiple ways. So they find themselves very active learners in the classroom and with any engagement that is of an academic or intellectual kind. So that is something that I wanted to stress as well. And to come to your question about what we do, when they finish their quota of these foundation courses, which are by themselves interdisciplinary. Now, once they finish it, they do get to choose a major where after having been exposed to different techniques and tools of looking at problems, if the student finds that they are, they're moving towards a particular kind of technique, say they like political science and their techniques a bit more, or they like literary studies a bit more, then we give them that option of concentrating a bit more in that particular field which they think suits their aptitude the most. Now, the advantage of giving these multidisciplinary foundational courses in the beginning is to expose them, as Jenny was rightly saying, to different kinds of ways of looking at the world. Now, students who come into the educational institution come with different aptitudes and different interests, right? So once they, and obviously it's in a way, these interests that they have, some of them are uninformed, but when we inform them of these different techniques, they're able to match their interests to a particular technique or to a particular approach, to academia, and then they say, okay, now I think I like the approach of economics a bit more than I like political studies. So that's the first year and a half, it gives them the flexibility to explore their interests a lot, and once they get in the fourth semester and they've chosen what they like, they go and concentrate a bit more on that. But having said that, it does not mean that we are reneging on our own commitment to interdisciplinarity when they go into the fourth semester, because even though they do concentrate on in the advanced level in some of the courses in economics, political science, and so on. Many of the courses are geared towards an interdisciplinary approach in themselves. Now, and that is one. So the very fact that they have had interdisciplinary training for the first year and a half means that when they come into the course, their minds are, so to speak, very active towards looking at different ways of handling a problem. And two, the courses are designed in such a way that they can take those tools and apply it in different ways. And the professor, and at least all of us, encourage the students to take some of these tools that we train them in, to apply it in different ways that people like. To give you an example, I have a student whom I am helping with this research. Now, he's interested in music, he's interested in art, but he's also interested in philosophy. Now, I've given him some set of tools in philosophy, but because he's interested in music, his research topic is about, trying to find philosophy in the practice of music and art. So I help him with, trying to find problems and solutions to that. So in a way, this commitment to interdisciplinarity continues throughout, but except that the higher level courses are obviously going to be slightly more intensive. It might give you more set of tools than what the student had got in the first year and a half, and also they will have more courses within their major selection. And so, but having said that, they can also, JSLH gives them the option to do cross-school electives as well. Probably that's something we can talk about a bit later. But I just want to stress the fact that I don't think at any point we lose our commitment to interdisciplinarity.
Yes, I think the topic of or the fact that our students can do a self-designed major is quite it's quite important, and many of the creative undergraduate theses that have come out of JSLH have been interdisciplinary in nature and have been completed by students who have taken on a self-designed major, and the combinations can be many. I mean, you mentioned one in philosophy, art, and music. There was another student in our earlier batch who combined literature and art to look at the effect of Japonism on Van Gogh's work. There was a very interesting thesis also on Urdu literature. So the list continues, really. But beyond academics in JSLH, we also have a range of programs. And both of you lead one at the University of Oxford. It's a winter program it's a PPE program on politics, philosophy, and economics. So could you talk a bit about these sort of opportunities and about this PPE program at Oxford and how that adds on to the interdisciplinary training that students get in JSLH?
Yeah, I think to just quickly respond to the previous question about interdisciplinary studies as part of the major, and then I'll try to connect it with the Oxford program. I have to make a point about our faculty profile. Most of us who teach at the Liplard School have interdisciplinary backgrounds. For instance, I started with the political science BA and ended up in the Department of History and Culture for my PhD. And Professor Krishnaswamy too started with economics BA and ended up with philosophy. So I think this is something. This is very telling of the most of us have this kind of a background, and that's very attractive for our students. And so therefore, when we, even the study abroad programs that our school offers, it's the same kind of ethos where we try to send them to study abroad programs which would cater to a diverse audience. where people from different backgrounds, and not just liberal arts students, but also law students and international affairs students who participate. So the Oxford Winter School Study Abroad program that we conduct in December every year, we've started in 2017. And it's with the Philosophy, Politics, Economics, the BPE program at Oxford. That's our tie-up with that department. And it's a 2-week intensive program where students undergo a series of lectures. So there are about 3 lectures, 1 lecture in each subject. And at the end of the day, there's a kind of a wrap-up seminar where they go over everything that they've learned the course of the day. And at the end of the 2 weeks, they're supposed to submit a research paper in one of the disciplines, using tools that they've learned during those 2 weeks. So therefore, PPE is actually a great example of a kind of program that wants to attract students who have these diverse interests. And we've had students, and these aren't necessarily. This program is, of course, open to undergrads and graduate students at our university, but not just people who are interested in a politics or philosophy or economics major, but might want to take up psychology or as a major, or take up law or whatever. So it's a very, very diverse group of students. We take about 20, 25 students every year. And I think that the program is enriching in ways that sort of they get used to, or they're exposed to the kind of academic rigor and truly sort of interdisciplinarian academic rigor that is required in at MA levels or graduate level studies in universities like Oxford or Cambridge and so on. So it's a good it's a good opportunity for students to get exposed to these techniques, these ideas, and ways of studying at such an early stage in their academic career.
I mean, it's also very exciting for some students because in Oxford, when you talk university, you have the top intellectuals and the top writers, philosophers, economists, and everybody sitting there. So many of the texts that we study back in university, you study, and the students get to meet some of them in person and ask the questions that they would have asked among themselves to the person himself or herself is very exciting for many of the students. And I think that gives that added incentive for them to come to the program because this is an opportunity for them to engage sort of in real time with the top intellectual of the world.
And it has a huge impact on the student. We've noticed a marked difference in students who come back from these study abroad programs, whether Oxford or the one you organized in Paris. I mean, remarkable difference. There's a lot of confidence that's added, and also to say that it's not just studies. We also socialize when we go out to these programs and spend 2 weeks together. There's a great community feeling, there's a lot of socializing, and even while we socialize, students like to ask questions. They keep engaging themselves with these ideas that they may have discussed in class, and the discussion sort of spills over, So that's always fun. That's always nice.
I mean, you take students to Paris. Can you tell us a bit about your experience of, taking them to that summer program?
Yes, we've had 1 year of it's a summer program at Sciences Po in Paris, and it's a program called Europe and the World, and it's a combination of politics, economics, environmental studies, and sociology. And students have the advantage of listening to lectures from these many different academics from different backgrounds. And what I find quite interesting is, I think we talk about interdisciplinarity in terms of connections between different disciplines, but I feel that getting out of the classroom and making sort of putting that learning in different settings also adds to an understanding of disciplinarity in a different way. Like Sucharita, you pointed out, asking questions that it's a very different learning process. And I agree with you that students learn a lot, and just hearing different voices, I think different perspectives opens up their mind, different possibilities. So I think move on to Krishna Swami and Sucharita. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Krishna Swami will join us in just a minute.
Okay, we couldn't see you.
I think there's some problem with the internet connection. Yeah,
okay.
We've had to switch off the video for a few minutes because of the poor internet connection. I'm sorry.
But I was
wondering. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I was wondering if you could talk a bit also about, the center that you co-direct. Yes, PR, Center for Social and Political Research, and talk about how interdisciplinarity comes in there, and also your research as well. Because for students, I think learning outside the classroom becomes quite important. So could you tell us a bit about CSPR and how it brings in or adds to an interdisciplinary training for students in JSLH?
Yeah, I think so.
1 second, sorry. Can you see us? Because I can't see you though.
Okay, I am here.
I'm sorry, not this.
Okay, as long as you hear me. That's
as long as we can hear each other.
Okay.
I think the Center for Social and Political Research was something that we were very interested in from the very beginning, because Krishna Swami and we have another professor with us, Professor Litika Kamra, who's part of the center as well, and myself. The three of us wanted to provide a platform to students who are really interested in social science research, and not just sort of isolated research in political science or philosophy or anthropology or whatever, but to combine techniques to look at issues which would require multiple approaches, layered approaches, and so on. And there was a lot of interest from our students, and therefore sort of this motivated us to finally launch the center, I think a year and a half ago. So it's an excellent platform for students to come together and get to know of intellectuals who sort of who have different things to say, important things to say about different issues, from philosophy to political science, and various disciplines of the social sciences. And so we conduct seminars which are optional. Students volunteer and they come and attend. And it's a great space. It's very. We've had several of these seminars over the past 3 semesters, and we've noticed that students find it comfortable as a space to ask questions. We bring intellectuals from Delhi to come and lecture on certain topics. We've conducted conferences in Delhi and on campus. So it's a great opportunity for students to get to know of the intellectuals who are working on certain topics that they might find really interesting. It's also great for students to. It's we have this. It's a ritual we do. Is after the seminar is over, we take the students and the guest speaker and we eat lunch together. And I think that students really get really comfortable and they open up and they ask all kinds of questions. Somebody asked one of our speakers what his fitness regime is and why he's so fit and how does he balance between fitness and his academic commitments. So I mean, a lot of interesting conversations happen through the center, and we are trying to get to a stage where students can conduct independent research under our guidance, and we provide whatever help we can. But it's just that they come and get exposed to these ideas. They make these connections. They network through via the center, and are motivated to write papers, whether it's for a journal, whether it's for a magazine or just a blog. We've had all kinds of interests that have come off the center. So it's essentially it's a response to the interest that comes from the students, and we organize events accordingly. And parallel to seminars, we also try to hold repeating groups, because sometimes there are students who want to engage with a really difficult text. And I remember as an undergraduate, I mean, it was very intimidating to have people throw, these heavy names and heavy texts that they're reading, and these texts are always very fat and always very intimidating to read. But here we make an effort to, to cover some books or some readings that are really essential during these foundation years as an undergraduate student. So it's a very casual space, and we're very approachable as faculty coordinators. So it makes we have very interesting conversations.
Yeah, I mean the idea is also to keep the flow of ideas outside the classroom as well, and to keep to maintain some kind of a meaningful relationship outside the classroom. It is not just that I'm a teacher who only talk about philosophy in the classroom, and then outside I'm either unapproachable or I won't talk to them about issues that are very important for what they think are pressing. So it is to create a space where you can bring in your other concerns from other disciplines as well into this particular research space, and have the opportunity to exchange viewpoints, ideas, and so on and so forth. So we try and make sure that this research, keeping in mind our own pedagogical philosophy, which is to keep it very interdisciplinary, and to make sure that we don't concentrate on just one particular discipline. And that's why we call it, Center for Research, Center for Social and Political Research, to keep it as broad as possible, because we want to look at issues that have a social and a political impact. So the students think that, whenever there is a particular issue, how can they connect it to, current social or political the situations that they find in themselves.
Yeah, and also that, I mean, it's important to remember that this is a residential campus. Students live on campus, and some of us faculty members also live not on campus, but just outside campus. And it's overwhelming to see how demanding students can be. I mean, they have their assignments, their coursework, etc. But they always want more. They want to be stimulated with new ideas. And therefore, this was really student-driven. I mean, there were a group of students who wanted us to, hurry up the process and quickly launch the center so we could have these discussions. And sometimes these discussions happen, after the whole day's work, and we get together after class, and we have a wonderful food court where we sit and have discussions sometimes. So it's really also to add to community life on campus. It is a residential campus. It can be isolating, and these things essentially, I mean, the center work keeps students going. Really gives them that added, something to sort of look forward to apart from coursework and assignments.
Okay, thank you. We have around 2 or 3 minutes before we take questions, and I was wondering if you could say a bit about the future of this interdisciplinary training. One aspect of taking up the life of a liberal arts student is choosing the major. And as we know very well, that students really agonize over this decision as if it's a life-changing decision. But like both of you and like many of us have moved from one discipline to another, and embrace this interdisciplinarity in our work and in our teaching. What advice would you give to students who are wondering what this interdisciplinary education could do for them?
Now, I mean, one of the things that we try and disabuse students of who come fresh is to think that you will get a job or you will have a career only if you concentrate on one particular discipline. And but if you look at it closely, the downside of that is that if you do concentrate on a particular discipline this early, and if you at any point have a change of heart, or which is possible because we are as human beings are always changing. So at any point, if you feel this is not your discipline, you have very limited scope to jump or move from one discipline to the other. So in a way, you are trying to build yourself or build a trap around yourself by choosing very early what you want to do for the rest of your life. That life choice that you make this early can really be a trap, and that's something that we want to tell the students early on. So we want students to keep their options open as long as they can. So going to your question, to answer your question specific, what we do at our program is to echo what we were discussing in the past 45 minutes, to give them a set of skills that will enable them to be flexible if they want to go, let's say, into the job market. Now, what do people in the job market look for? Job market, especially when they're looking for freshers, they're looking generally for a smart mind in terms of finding accessible solutions to problems that might come up in the business. And these are two things that we definitely give in our program across the different disciplines that we teach. So a lot of students need not be apprehensive about what is going to happen after because in a way they are the best equipped to and they're best equipped in terms of skills, in terms of approaches, and handle a program like us gives, because the jobs, for example, come up because of the needs that keep changing socially and politically and economically. But if you already are flexible towards meeting those needs, you're way ahead of the others who are in disciplinary silos. And I think that way, other students don't need to worry about where the future is going to go.
Okay, great. Sucharita, do you want to add anything to this? Do you want to talk a bit about even on to master's programs, for example, and how this training might help them?
Yeah, I think just to bring back an earlier point I was making when we started this conversation about academic freedom and the flexibility, which are two very key characteristics of our liberal arts program. It really responds to the changing times. The job market has changed considerably, and people are no longer. You have a political science background, and therefore there are limited jobs available. For political science majors is no longer the case. People used to think. Just to give you an example, I think big corporate firms, Facebook are not looking for one kind of student. They're looking for interesting people who have it's very difficult to find this, but somebody who's able to think out of the box, is able to tackle problems from different perspectives, or to just approach a problem in a very interesting out of the box manner. And I tell my students who struggle, because we also have a mentorship program at JSLH where we mentor students for their entire duration with us. 3 years. And the difficult discussions are always about choosing a major and whether this major would lead to a job eventually. But I think students come to realize that, times have really changed, and a philosophy major might have a greater chance at a corporate job, at a corporate position than, say, a business studies candidate. And therefore, this is something that students have come to understand. And I've had students, the decision to make a major is, of course, is a tense time for students because, there's pressure from home, they have their own pressures, and so on. But I think that they begin to realize once they begin start their major studies, is the ability to enjoy that kind of flexibility. I've had students who come to political science and then later realize they're really interested in philosophy, history, philosophy, and the reverse has also happened. And this shouldn't be considered as a disadvantage. It's not going to put you at a disadvantage. And MA programs, you look at, and you see, MA programs are some of the more popular MA programs in various universities are really are under mother departments, but they're very issue specific. So there's South Asian studies which could be organized or curated by the science department or the history department in a particular university, but they really cater to people from different backgrounds. So my own research, my MPhil was in modern South Asian studies at Cambridge, and I had classmates from mathematics backgrounds, like mathematics, physics, history, political science, and so on. So these kinds of graduate research programs in any kind of university, good university, whether in India or abroad, really are issue-based departments. They're not conventional kinds of departments, where only one kind of discipline is taught and one kind of research is done. So students go on to very interesting programs from our school, and some of my students have gone on to doing development studies. They're interested in anthropology. They've gone on to philosophy, schools of philosophy in other universities, and so on. So I think it creates so much flexibility that it makes these things possible. But of course, keeping in mind that when you're doing a major, we are very careful about the fact that we have to give them the required skill sets, in that discipline. And if they want to do further research in that discipline, they're able to. So there's interdisciplinary on the one side, and there's also a particular discipline skill sets that's also important. So it's a sort of balance between them.
Great, thank you. We have just about 5 minutes for question and answers. And there is a question on internships offered related to this interdisciplinary course. Would any of you like to? We don't have internships specifically, or I don't know if your question is more about internships generally. In JSLH, students are expected to do 4 internships compulsorily as part of the curriculum, and these are credited. And of course, internships, like all work experience, is very interdisciplinary. So you cannot have an internship in history, or an internship in political science, or an internship in philosophy. But actually, most of the internships require an interdisciplinary skill. But would you like to, Sucharita and Swami, talk about any specific internship experiences that our students have had that fields?
Yeah, to just to repeat a couple of points that I needed stressing. One is that we require our students to have internships, at least 4 of them in the 3 years that they are here. Now, we also facilitate their internships. We also facilitate them getting internships because we have a career development cell within the university which matches the interests and the desires of students to the corporate or any other industry needs that might exist outside. So we do facilitate them. And so to give you a few examples, a lot of our students have gone and interned at the Jaipur Literary Festival, for example, where they get to either work with a team which works with an author or with a panel, and they also work at the different departments. Some people who like audio and video and event management work at the event management side. Some people who like to work with academic or the ideation side, they work with authors and work with people who work with these panels. And so that's what's an example of the kind of internships that people have done. Obviously, there are other internships that people can do. There are think tanks that people can work in. There are that people can work in. There are also and they work in. They can write. They can work with writing workshops or journalist outfits that require interns to do skills and journalistic skills and so on. So in a way, we facilitate internships because they're credit bearing. We help them get internships that they like. And I myself have worked with the internship team for 2 years, and I know that it's a dynamic equation in the sense that the needs of the industry, so to speak, keep changing, and the interests of the industry are also changing, and we try and match both. And so we have a dedicated team which does that. I hope that answers these questions.
Yeah, great. Well, are there? I don't see any other questions on the question board at the moment, but we are open to take questions later on. So if any of you would like to answer, okay.
Okay, so there's another question about the fellowship program, fourth-year fellowship.
Okay, I think this is one of our ex-students, possibly, about the fellowship program that JSLH has launched, and how it may, the Jindal Fellowship Program, which is after students graduate from JSLH, and how it may benefit professionals in the domains of content production and communications. Would you like to talk about this? I mean, we have a separate webinar for the fellowship program. This is more for students who come in, but indeed, the fellowship program is it focuses on advanced research and writing, which again is interdisciplinary in nature. And of course, if you are working in the domain of content production and communication, if you are working in domain that requires interdisciplinary research, then the program could be helpful for you. But do write to us separately for a more detailed response. Professor Yugang Goyal and Professor Swati Chawla are co-directing this program, so you can write to them. Okay, I think we've run out of time now. Thank you everyone for attending, and thank you Krishna Swami and Sucharita.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks a lot for being part of this. And so if, I suppose there are more questions, they can send emails.
Yes, you can send us emails. Our emails are there on the website. You can direct your questions to the admissions team, who will be happy to forward it to us as well.
Okay. Okay, see you. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.